Hey everybody, welcome to the class page, hst324.alexgalarza.com. Make sure that you bookmark that page, keep it handy, because everything that we're going to be doing in the class will run through it. We are going to be using Desire to Learn, so you can see the link here to the course page on the right-hand side. But really, this page is the one-stop shop for our summer semester together. So I'd like to take a minute to just run you through the different sections of the course page and to explain how the class is actually going to work. Let's start at the landing page, which is going to have the top level information you'd usually see on a syllabus, so course policies and assignment breakdowns. But let's pause for a moment at the class goals. Now, David Bailey, who I'd mentioned taught this class before me, titled it The History of Sports in America. And I've changed the title, one, to reflect the fact that I'm a Latin Americanist and I'm going to teach you kind of from my perspective, but also to make an argument about understanding modern sports as being, even if it's about the United States, in this class, we have to put it in a conversation with an international perspective. Too many of the games that we're going to be talking about in this class, really their stories are about placing the United States into conversation with somewhere else. So that's why it's sports and the United States. And the other reason for changing the title is to signal that not everyone thinks about the United States as America, especially Latin Americans. The class goals then are, first and foremost, yes, to understand the history of modern sports in the United States. Where did baseball start? How did college football become popular? Where was basketball invented and how did it make its way into the United States? But it's to take a look at those histories with some specific questions in mind. And that's where the four key concepts, space, race, gender, and money, come into play. Did cities matter? What kinds of racial dynamics affected the developments of these sports? Were women being included? Were norms around femininity, around the proper role of women, being challenged or reinforced? What kinds of forms of masculinity came out of a game like baseball versus a game like college football? And money. Money, the great tension that animates a lot of debates today around what its proper role is in sports. We're going to keep running into that tension about what sports are really about, profit, play, these kinds of issues. The goal then by the end of the class is for you to be able to showcase historical thinking on the issues that we're going to bring up in contemporary sports. So it's about tying the past to the present, because many of you are taking this class because you're interested in sports. You may be fans, athletes. You may even have a particular kind of interest in an issue like the amateur status of NCAA athletes. And so it's about taking a contemporary question and tying it to historical issues to show that there's continuities, but there's also differences, and that you've done some deep thinking on how these things come together. The rest of the page, read through closely, so you can pause the video right now and give it a read through in detail. I will say that 15% of your grade is your quizzes, and these are weekly, but they're reading comprehension. So if you're doing a good job on the readings, keeping up with the content, taking good notes, you should do well on them. You'll get more details on the film review and final project later, but also pay attention to the fact that half your grade comes from the weekly writing prompts. So that's because that's where you get to show me your thinking. This is where you get to make arguments and show me that you're doing good thinking on the readings and on the prompt. Don't plagiarize, you'll fail the class. If you're a student with a disability, be in touch and we can talk about accommodations. Don't worry about buying any textbooks because we don't have any assigned textbooks for the class. And finally, read this section on due dates carefully because I don't accept late work. So if you know you're going to miss something ahead of time, get it in early. If you have a documented excuse, of course, we can work around that. But just pay attention to the due dates and know that the late stuff won't be accepted. Let's take a look now at the schedule page. This is the most important page for the class because it has everything that you need broken down on a week-to-week basis. So each week we'll have a video header, which will always be the place that you want to start because I'll record something that guides you through the readings. It's less of a lecture and really more of guidance, tipping you off to what you should be paying attention to in the readings. Not only for the quizzes and the prompts, but what's important and what kinds of arguments you see me making about moving through the content. And then you'll have the reading itself linked either in PDF form, or if it's a podcast or a web article, you'll be linked to a blog or the podcast page. And then you'll always have this reminder for the D2L quiz on Thursdays. So you have to finish them. Say you start your readings on Monday, you have until Thursday before midnight to take that quiz. And that leaves you Friday to really focus on, you should have started it before, but to revise and get your writing prompt into the state that you want it to be to turn in by 5 p.m. on that day. So that's how every week will work. And then scrolling down, you can see that we have all 7 weeks of contents broken down on the schedule page. Now we can click on the assignments page, but you'll notice it's just dummy text right here. So as we get the class up and running this first week, you'll see this page change, and you'll have details on each kind of assignment. And you'll also see that the schedule page will change a little bit too, because I'll link to the assignments page. That way you have details on how to complete these assignments directly from the schedule page. So again, this is dummy text for now, but you'll see this change in this first week as we get to these assignments for the first time. Last is the instructors page, and here you can learn a little bit more about us. So Ryan Huey is a friend and colleague in the department, and he's going to be doing most of the grading for this class, so you'll be interacting with him quite a bit as well. But you can learn more about us and our work here on this page. I want to circle back to the schedule page to kind of just walk you through all the cool stuff we're going to be covering in the class. Week 1, I'll talk about in detail in a separate guidance video, but it's the origin story. We're going to be looking at what modern sports are, where they come from, and how they spread in the United States. We'll start laying out those 4 key concepts to trace them out in the rest of the class. And week 2, we have baseball. This really is a week on baseball. The film that week that you can write a review about is A League of Their Own, starring Tom Hanks, Rosie O'Donnell, Madonna, kind of a real 90s movie in a lot of senses. Then week 3 is college football. And this is the first of the weeks that has a sport at its head, but isn't really just about that sport. This could also be titled College Athletics and Issues in College Athletics, but we will look at football explicitly because it kind of plays a special role in the spread and popularity of intercollegiate competitions. So we have some readings on understanding where college sports come from, but then we get into issues that are real contemporary, issues around Title IX, the NCAA's amateur status for student athletes, and people like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar having an axe to grind with what that means and what should be done about it. And then also issues that affect you, who pays for student athletics, what are the economics of college football and basketball programs in particular. And then this issue of money is really what's focused in on in that film for the week, which is Pony Excess. It's a 30 for 30 film on Southern Methodist University's football program, which was essentially buying athletes and the fallout that resulted from it. After that, we're going to be looking at basketball. We have some great readings this week, especially on the women's game. And then the film Hoop Dreams is one of my favorites. It's about 2 young African-American boys trying to make it in the NBA in Chicago and what their lives look like, what they go through in trying to do that. Then week 5 again is one of these funny weeks where hockey is kind of the title of that week, but it's really the Olympics and hockey. And we have some readings and a great podcast about international competition in the United States and the role of hockey in the Olympic Games, what the Olympic Games are all about. And then one of my favorite documentaries of all time, Werner Herzog, Red Army. It follows basically the story of Slava Fetisov, his career for the Russian national team and his arrival in the United States as a Detroit Red Wing. Then week 6 is boxing and track, and these readings and the content for this week, including the film, it's really about the civil rights movement, and it's about Muhammad Ali, Tommy Smith, and John Carlos. These are readings that are gonna help us understand the significant role that Black athletes played in a wider civil civil rights era. And these are really great readings and a phenomenal, phenomenal film about Muhammad Ali's fight against George Foreman in Zaire. And then the final week is on soccer. So we have one reading that fits it into the culture wars, and then another historical reading that shows just how long soccer's been around in this country, and then two great movies. One about the NASL, in which in the 1970s and 80s, world greats like Pelé, Beckenbauer, George Best all played, and then a movie about the generation that won the 1999 Women's World Cup, of which many of you probably remember names like Mia Hamm and their story.